Now, I've touched upon this in various other videos dealing with the nodes of the moon, but I'm going to explain to you how I look at and use the dignities of these two planets, these two grahas. A lot of people will refer to books that will say things like Ketu does well in Scorpio and Rahu does well in Taurus, or Ketu does well in Aries and Rahu does well in Libra. And these things make sense based on how we can relate the nodes of the moon, say Rahu to Saturn and Ketu to Mars. They also make sense based on the energies and qualities of the nodes of the moon, and when they are in those particular signs, they will be more in harmony with what those signs want to grow within the world. We can also think of Rahu and Ketu, for example, Ketu in Pisces being very good, Rahu in Virgo being very good, and the reverses of all these not necessarily being so supportive. And we have to think about what is the actual logic behind this. So if you think about the quality of each of those signs, for example, Ketu being in Scorpio, excellent. Ketu being in Aries, being related to Mars, Ketu being related to Mars, and multiple other things which we'd have to go a little more deeply into, we can see how it's possible that Ketu will work well in those signs, generally speaking. When we think about Rahu and what Rahu represents in regards to desires and evolving those desires and expressing and experiencing those desires within the world, well, having Rahu in Taurus or Rahu in Libra, this makes a lot of sense because these signs deal with this, and Rahu being related to Saturn, also Saturn works well, generally speaking, in those signs as natural friendships go between the planets. Having Ketu in Pisces, Ketu being the supreme liberator within the chart, that thing which frees us from all of our attachments, which allows us to go deep into the experience of pure consciousness. Pisces being the final sign in the zodiac, the sign of liberation, the sign of complete and utter holiness, beyond restricting concepts and forms. Well, so it makes sense for Ketu to do well in Pisces, generally speaking. Also having Rahu in Virgo, which is a sign of getting into the world, focusing on worldly things, being of service to the world, exploring the world, even improving the world. We have to remember Rahu is extremely intelligent, probably one of the most intelligent of all the planets. And by putting him in Virgo, that puts him in an earth sign, and that gives him the capacity, hopefully, if he works well, to navigate the world better, all right, to improve upon the world. Because Virgo is a sign that does deal with quality improvement, quality control types of things. So these are just some general themes, and these positions are referenced in traditional Vedic astrological texts. But there's not really any consensus on where is the exaltation, or where is Rahu's own home, or things like this. There's no consensus in these old books. However, we have to remember that the nodes of the moon work through the planets that they are with, and they work through the planets which rule over them. So, for example, if Rahu is in Leo, then that energy of Rahu, because it's a shadow planet, it doesn't have a body of its own, it has to work through the bodies of the other embodied planets, then Rahu would work primarily through Leo and through the sun, the planet of the sun. When we have Ketu in Capricorn, well, now Ketu, which is also a shadow planet, doesn't have a body of its own. It has to work through Capricorn, which is ruled over by Saturn. So the dignity of Saturn is going to play a large role in regards to how Ketu expresses its energy and its agenda. So the way I use the nodes of the moon over these many years, following the same principles that we just discussed, but I found better success applying whether a node is going to work well or not so well based on the dignity of its ruler. So again, you find out which sign the node is in, what sign Rahu and Ketu is in, and you figure out what is the dignity of the Lord of that sign. And that'll give you a general idea if you can expect more positive results with the nodes or more negative results with the nodes. And by positive and negative, that just means how much ease or difficulty are you going to have in learning to work with and evolve in the way the nodes want you to. You can have a node in bad dignity, meaning its Lord is in bad dignity. And if that's the case, you're going to be less likely interested in evolving in the way that node wants you to evolve. Okay? If you're meant to focus on relationships, well, if that node is in bad dignity and it's influencing the 7th house, you're going to go kicking and screaming, trying to evolve your relationships. If it's in good dignity, you're still going to have problems there because it's the nodes and it wants you to evolve and you need to direct that experience. But you're more likely to do it with a little more ease and a little more skillfully. So node in bad dignity, that just shows you need to put a lot more work and attention towards its position and the planet that rules over it. Okay, so again, to be clear, to figure out the dignity of the nodes, Rahu or Ketu, determine what sign they are in, and then determine how is the Lord of that sign situated. The better the Lord of that sign is situated, the better that node will typically work for you, or you'll be able to work with it, I should say. This also applies to planets that are with the nodes, in the same sign with the nodes. So if you have Mercury and Rahu together in the same sign, well, since the nodes are shadow planets, they don't have bodies of their own, then that node will also work through the qualities of the planet that it's with. It will also work through Mercury. So you have to see how is Mercury situated. If Mercury is well supported, in good dignity, if he's a happy Mercury, you're going to be able to adjust and adapt to what you're going to have to explore in regards to that combination of Rahu and Mercury. Now, I do have planned to go through all of the planetary combinations. It's going to be a little ways off, but it's on the books. I'm still finishing up, as you know, the Sarvarta Chintamani videos. I've got houses 10, 11, and 12 to go. There's just so many projects and so many clients to work with. It's hard to get it all lined up. However, it will be done. So have patience, stay tuned, and we'll get into the planetary combinations, which we will also look at the combinations of the nodes with each planet and what it's trying to evolve you into, essentially, or what it's trying to help you let go of, to grow through. But for your own purposes, if you understand how to determine whether a planet's going to work well or not, then figure out what sign Rahu or Ketu are in, determine what planet rules over that sign, and then you will know if the nodes of the moon are going to work well for you. So simple formula, figure out what sign the planet's in, determine the dignity of the planet, and then if that planet's in good dignity, the node will work typically better for you. You'll be able to work with it. If the planet is in not so good dignity, then you'll have more struggle. You'll be called upon to work a little bit harder to understand and evolve what the node represents for you.